Hello, thank you everyone for joining me today. I'm Sarah Fender, Principal Program Manager in the Azure Security Center team. And I want to get started by just honestly thanking you for joining us for this session today. I know you have a lot of options here at Ignite, and I'm really pleased that you've elected to spend your time learning more about Azure Security Center. We've got a lot of new capabilities that we released this week, so lots of new things for me to show you. Hopefully at the end you'll have felt like it was a good choice. Looks like my clicker is not going to work for me. There we go. So cloud adoption is growing. 90% of Fortune 500 companies are using the Microsoft Cloud, whether that's SaaS applications like Office 365 or Azure. And while the cloud is growing, hybrid continues to be very, very important. 67% of enterprises are adopting hybrid cloud. That's this year. We know that hybrid will continue to be an important mode for many organizations for many years to come. So I hope none of you are rethinking your choice of sessions quite yet. I've just shared with you that customers are moving to the cloud and they're hybrid. Was this news to anyone? Stay with me for just a moment. The reason that I point that out is because there are significant implications from a security perspective about working in this hybrid multi-cloud mode. First is that your infrastructure is increasingly distributed, right? Goes without saying. But it's not just on-prem and in the cloud, it's also across multiple clouds. It's also that the owners, the managers, the folks who are operating those workloads on a day-to-day basis are also increasingly distributed. Central IT no longer has that sort of gate that they can use to make sure that security is consistently or effectively applied across all of these workloads. And so getting visibility into what's running, ensuring that best practices for securing those applications, that those are applied, is a real challenge for organizations, and it's amplified when you think about extending that to all of this distributed infrastructure. There's increasing management complexity. If we think about the kinds of components, the infrastructure that we're managing today, it's not just about virtual machines and servers, which most folks have a bit of a handle on how to secure it, at least on-prem today. But now we have to think about this whole new world of PaaS services, storage, and databases that are running in the cloud. And these workloads tend to be much more dynamic, so things are being spun up and spun down on a much more regular basis. And so just as we think about what our infrastructure looks like today, it's distinctly different than it was several years ago, and organizations have to sort of think differently about how they approach security across these different kinds of infrastructures. And then, of course, the attack landscape just continues to get tougher and tougher every day. Attackers are becoming more sophisticated. Attacks are more frequent, more rapidly evolving. It's just a very, very challenging place to be, and many organizations are struggling to keep pace with that. We see that many of them are deploying a variety of point solutions to try to address that, and that's great. It makes sense to try to fill those security gaps, but unfortunately we find that it also creates a lot of noise. So customers are getting flooded with alerts from lots of different systems, and their security operations and incident response teams are kind of struggling with how to effectively respond and triage and investigate those alerts. So we think that security analytics is an important component to solving these challenges, and we think that can be done in the cloud much more effectively than ever before. You get to tap into this collective wisdom, the ability to learn from other customers about what security controls are proving effective in their environments. How are they going about defending their infrastructure? So lots of things we can learn from other customers that are running across the Microsoft environments. We also get the ability of what we call the cloud effect. So we're able to see attack patterns and anomalies in one customer and to be able to apply those to protect all of our customers. And then the other benefit that we have is just lots and lots and lots of data. So we can feed our machine learning models with trillions of signals, and this enables us to optimize them to deliver better detections and better protections. So as we get into Security Center, you'll see that we're applying security analytics in a variety of different ways. You hear a lot about using analytics to detect threats, but we're also thinking about how we can leverage those analytics to help you provide better protections as well. So not just looking at kind of the last segment of the cybersecurity chain, but also how we can do things earlier on to help prevent attacks in the first place. So Azure Security Center provides unified security management and threat protection, and we're very excited to announce this week that we're extending those capabilities beyond Azure to help you protect workloads that are running on premises and in other clouds. So you get this one unified security management threat protection solution. And that starts with providing you with visibility and control. So you can see what's running in your environments and you can manage security centrally for those. It includes the ability to provide adaptive threat prevention. So to constantly be assessing the security of these environments to help you find and fix vulnerabilities, to applying smarter security controls to help block attacks. And then finally, intelligent threat detection and response. So applying advanced analytics, tapping into Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph to help you more quickly detect and more effectively respond to attacks. Do we have any Operations Management Suite security and compliance users in the audience? Great, I see a number of hands. So very excited to announce today, or at Ignite this week, the ability for Operations Management Suite or Log Analytics security customers to begin using Security Center. It's now hybrid, and we have ported over all of the great security capabilities that you've come to rely on in the OMS security and compliance solution into Azure Security Center. So you get all of those great capabilities plus lots and lots of additional features, and you can do that all in Security Center. So the two solutions are now using the same infrastructure. So Azure Security Center is leveraging the log analytics or the OMS agent. So we're standardized on one agent. And we're putting data into the customer's workspace, so one workspace. And that really enables us to take advantage of the scalable log analytics platform for data collection and analytics. So a really powerful framework for us to build the Azure security solution upon. And then for our OMS customers, zero effort. They can just start using Azure Security Center today. There's no migration required. Just open Security Center in the Azure portal, and we will have already discovered any computers that were connected to your OMS security and audit solutions. So you can just open it up and start using it. Really, really simple. So let's drill in a little bit to this unified visibility and control. So as I've mentioned, you'll hear me say this over and over again today, that you now can manage all of your hybrid cloud workloads in one place. This is the Security Center experience kind of overview if you're not familiar with it. It's changed a little bit as we've pulled in some of those capabilities from OMS security. So you'll see some new dashboards here that are optimized to provide a view across your hybrid workloads. We'll look at some of those here in a minute. You'll see also the ability to directly access integrated log search. So if you want to get to those underlying security events that are being collected, you can do that right from Security Center now. You can flag notable events that require your attention, and you get some new threat intelligence dashboards as well. So this is the new Security Center experience, now hybrid. So I want to talk a little bit about policy. This is incredibly important as central IT and IT security are trying to get, again, that visibility and also some control over the security of these distributed hybrid cloud workloads. So in Security Center, you can set a security policy for each of your Azure subscriptions. That's been around for a while. But Azure Policy has recently released some new capabilities that are integrated into the Security Center policies. So you can define a policy inside of Security Center, and you can use Azure Policy to extend that policy. You can do things like enforcing some of those policies. So a new VM, for example, can be required to have disk encryption enabled. You can also take a single policy that you've defined, and you can extend that across all of your Azure subscriptions using Azure management groups. You can also define a particular subscription or a set of subscriptions and apply a policy to those. So you might want to have a group of, create a group of your production subscriptions or those that contain PII or regulated data, and you could define a specific policy for that set of subscriptions. So this makes it much, much easier to manage and apply security policy across your organization. So I'm very excited about that. I know a number of customers were looking for that capability. So those policies govern the recommendations and monitoring that surface in Azure Security Center. They can also be used to automatically onboard new Azure resources and to provision automatically the monitoring agent on those. Security Center also offers the ability to collect, search, and analyze a variety of different kinds of security data. So in the past, Azure Security Center supported a number of connected partner solutions that were kind of pre-integrated with Azure Security Center. And so when you deployed a solution like a web application firewall, Security Center would automatically collect alerts from that web application firewall, and you could see those inside of Security Center. And that remains the case today. Lots of pre-integrated partners can be deployed, and their logs can automatically be integrated with Security Center. But we've also extended those capabilities to provide some built-in connectors for things like Azure Active Directory information protection. So if you're using that solution, you can easily connect it up to Security Center so you can see all of the alerts from the information protection service along with those generated by Security Center in one place. You can also connect up alerts from the Advanced Threat Analytics service. And you can connect lots and lots of other kinds of security data sources, really any of those that support the common event format, CEF. Those logs can easily be integrated into Azure Security Center. You can access those via the search, and also, again, alerting can be integrated across those. So again, that data is all flowing into this log analytics workspace, high-scale, cloud-based analytics platform. And you can conduct ad hoc queries on that data, super fast, super scalable solution, flexible querying language, makes it really, really easy for you to get access to the security data, and the searching experience is integrated inside of Azure Security Center. You can define notable events if you wanted to monitor specific kinds of security events that are occurring within your environment. There are some pre-built or some built-in notable events that we're surfacing for you, and you can create your own. So basically define a query of the kinds of events you want to monitor, and those will show up as notable events in your dashboard. Okay, let's pop over and take a look at the demo. I'm not seeing that on my laptop. I don't know if that's something that we can fix. I'll try to drive from over here, but it'll be a little bit of a tricky navigation. Okay, so we're looking at Azure Security Center, built into Azure, and what is it? Word of the day? Hybrid, thank you. So Security Center automatically surfaces information for you about all of your Azure subscriptions, and it provides a couple of special roles that help you with that. There's a security administrator and a security reader role. So if you need someone from central IT or IT to security to have access to view information across your Azure subscriptions, you can assign that role to them, and that'll enable them to use Security Center to either view the information or to modify security policies, but it will not grant them ownership of the Azure resources. So it creates a little bit of separation there. So we hear a lot from central IT or central IT security that they want the ability to monitor, to configure policy, but they don't actually want to be owners of those resources. They want the workload owner to be responsible for applying the security that's needed. So you can do that using these security roles. So you do get this view across all of your subscriptions, but you can filter down if you wanted to just look at information about a particular subscription. So let's start with security policy. Again, that really provides the framework for the recommendations and monitoring that are done in Security Center. And you'll see there's some new integration with Azure Policy, and we can define a policy for each of our subscriptions. and our workspaces. And we'll start with data collection. So here you can automatically provision the monitoring agent on your Azure virtual machines. And this will apply or provision the monitoring agent on any existing virtual machines that are running in your environment and any new ones that you create. So this is super useful. You don't have to worry about onboarding new Azure resources. Security Center will do that automatically for you. A new resource is created. Security Center will automatically provision the monitoring agent, and you'll start seeing data about that VM showing up in Azure Security Center. Now, one other note about the monitoring agent, there are some security assessments that we can do without the agent being installed. So information about the network configuration or whether encryption's enabled for that, things that are available via the Azure APIs. But there's some other information that's super helpful for us to get from inside the VM. This is things like patch status and OS configurations, and also raw security event logs. And so enabling the monitoring agent on your machines will give us more insight, and as a result, we can give you more useful information about the security state of that VM. So certainly recommended that you turn on data automatic provisioning of the agent. So Security Center will automatically create a workspace for you. So you open Security Center. If you've used it before, it has created a default log analytics workspace and is putting security data there. For existing customers that have a workspace they want to leverage, you can now specify an existing workspace, and Security Center will connect your Azure VMs there instead of using the default workspace that was created. So it allows you to get all of your data into an existing workspace if that's your preference. You also have the ability now to customize the volume of security events that are being collected. And so minimal is really the recommended tier, but if you want to collect more verbose security event logs, you can do that, and you can configure that here as part of the policy. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the Azure Security Center policy, you'll see that it looks a bit different today. And that's because we've integrated with the new Azure policy capability that was launched to limited preview this week. And so here you'll see a set of policy definitions, and you can also view and edit these in the Azure policy experience. And you can simply delete or add policy definitions based on your needs. You can define additional policy definitions and do some more advanced configuration in the Azure policy experience. And that's also where ultimately you'll be able to apply the policy across different scopes via management groups. So that capability is in limited preview today, and you'll see some additional things light up in the near future. But again, we're pretty excited about these new capabilities. Azure Policy is a pretty rich set of capabilities for creating and managing and enforcing policies and applying those at different scopes. And by tapping into those capabilities, we can really make it easier for you to manage security policies across your organization as well. Of course, you can configure email notifications. So anytime a high severity alert is triggered, you can get an email. And here you also set pricing. So just one word on pricing. A lot of the security assessment and basic policy capabilities that are offered by Security Center are available at no additional cost. They're just built into Azure as a benefit of using the platform. Some of the other capabilities I'll show you today, things like advanced defenses, just-in-time VM access, application controls, and threat detection. Those are all part of the standard tier, and you can upgrade to take advantage of those. There's a 60-day free trial, so I encourage everybody just to go turn it on and see what that reveals. You can always turn it off before the 60 days expire if you don't want to get billed for that, or maybe you don't, in the unlikely event you don't see value, you can turn that off. One other note on that, though, is that you can also set pricing tier at the resource group level. So if you didn't want to upgrade all of your resources in the subscription to the standard tier, you could select just a resource group. Maybe you had a super sensitive or mission critical application that was part of a resource group. You can apply the pricing at that level. Okay, so we've onboarded our Azure resources, we've set our security policy. I wanted to show you just quickly how you can add other non-Azure resources. So Security Center will discover the other workspaces that are connected to this account. And you can add computers to those, just as you've done if you're familiar with the OMS or the log analytics solution, by deploying the monitoring agent on those machines. So a relatively straightforward process. And again, you can do this on a machine no matter where it's running, if that's on-prem, in a private data center, or even in AWS. So just download the monitoring agent and provision that on those machines, and they'll instantly be onboarded to Security Center. Now, I wanted to show you the new events experience. So we can see here all of the events that are being collected. We can filter by type. We're seeing our notable events here. So again, out of the box, you're getting a number of predefined notable events. And you can also, and there's all of our event types, and then we can add, we could add a notable event here as well if you wanted to create your own custom event to monitor. And I mentioned earlier the integrated search experience. So again, right here from inside of Security Center, you can tap into the log analytics search experience, which again enables you to rapidly search over all of your security and operational data that's contained in that workspace. And finally, I wanted to show you connected security solutions. This also is a new experience. So you'll see that we have connected to this particular, or to Security Center, Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics alerts. Also, we have an Azure Security Center connected solution running here. In this case, it's Qualys. We can see that Security Center automatically discovered that, that we've got Azure AD information protection, or identity protection, I should say, sorry. And we can simply click to connect that. And we see that we have other options for connecting other data sources. We talked about adding non-Azure computers. We talked about Ceph. And then here we see, again, that built-in connector for ATA. All right, let's pop back over to our slides and move on to talk about adaptive threat prevention. So Security Center is continuously assessing the security of your resources, including any new ones that are created. And for your VMs and computers, it's monitoring for things like missing security or critical updates. These, of course, can create significant vulnerability. Think about some of the ransomware attacks we've had. WannaCry, for example. If those systems had been patched, they wouldn't have been vulnerable to that attack. So really, really important. Seems like a pretty basic function, but again, you've got folks that are managing these systems who may not be security experts. You need to make sure that your VMs are all patched. Also monitoring for anti-malware protection to see if that's deployed and that these signatures are being kept up to date. It's monitoring hundreds of Linux and Windows OS configurations. And we also recently added some web server configuration assessments as well. Those are in preview, and so today you'll actually see those in the notable events experience I just showed you, as opposed to the OS config experience that we'll look at here in a minute. So we'll move that over as soon as we move through the preview. And then disk encryption as well. So do your Azure VMs have disk encryption enabled? In terms of the other Azure services that we're monitoring here, we're looking at network security groups to make sure that those have been configured and that inbound rules are there to govern inbound traffic. We are checking for and recommending web application and next generation firewalls. Again, these are based on the policies that you've set. Monitoring your storage and your Azure SQL databases to ensure that encryption is enabled. Also for SQL, that auditing and threat detection is enabled, and monitoring web apps for web application firewalls. So when we discover issues, we surface those as recommendations. You get one prioritized list of all of the security issues impacting your environment. And in many cases, you can click through to take action to remediate those. I think this is particularly helpful for workload owners. because they can sign into Security Center. They're only going to see recommendations related to the resources that they own or have access to. So it's really their security to-do list. They can tick those things off and know that they've complied with the security policy set by their organization. So we have two new capabilities that I want to talk a bit about that really help to block malicious access and applications. So we're not just helping you to identify vulnerabilities, we're also helping you to take action to proactively block potentially malicious activity. So we'll take a look first at just-in-time VM access. Before we get into the specifics, let me just sort of state or give you a sense of the scope of the issue here. Brute force attacks are the most common attack that we see targeting VMs. This happens in Azure and other environments as well, but 100,000 attacks per month on average per VM. Huge number. So it's really a big deal, the brute force attacks. But the challenge here is most customers just can't lock down all of those ports. They require access for management purposes. They need to be able to remotely log into those systems. And unfortunately, the way they get around that is they just leave those ports open, or even if they have a requirement for their users to close those ports down when they're done, often that gets forgotten, and inevitably we see that customers have ports open that they weren't aware of or didn't want to be open. So the new just-in-time VM access feature really helps to address this. It limits exposure to those brute force attacks while providing you with access to those VMs when you need it. So it recommends or discovers VMs that don't have just-in-time access enabled. You can go in and configure that. You just simply set the rules for how users can access that VM, turn it on. Then when a user needs access, they can come into the Security Center blade, or they can access or make the request via PowerShell. They specify how they want to connect and for how long. Security Center lets them in, locks down those ports at the end of the time period. Then moving on to the malware threat, which is also a very big one today. We know that malware is really just rampant, and it's rapidly evolving. It makes it very hard for us to keep track. We know that anti-malware solutions are struggling with this. It's a cat and mouse game, right? A new piece of malware is released, and a new signature is released, and that malware morphs, and so a new signature is released. And it's just this constant cycle of trying to stay ahead of these malicious applications. Now, application controls can be very effective, things like whitelisting at addressing this challenge. So instead of trying to chase down all of those known bad applications, it just whitelists the known good applications. And anything that's not on that list is either blocked or audited. So it provides a lot of security value, but it's been traditionally very hard to manage. Getting an accurate list of applications, deploying those appropriately, managing changes to that list, it's really been very onerous. And so Security Center has addressed that by providing built-in what we call adaptive application controls. So Security Center listens and learns what processes are running on your virtual machines. It groups those together. So if it sees a set of resources, probably part of one application, that are running a consistent set of applications, it will group those together. And it will give you a list of recommended whitelisting rules to configure. You can review those and apply them, and Security Center will take care of actually creating the necessary whitelist on the virtual machines. So it does all of the heavy lifting for you in terms of helping you to understand what rules to apply, and then actually doing the work of applying those rules. So let's take a look at that in the demo as well. Okay, so we can see the overall security state of our resources here. We can see compute, networking, storage, applications. We can see that we have some red, and we need to click in to find out what's going on here. So at the top, Security Center will surface any issues it has. If for some reason it's not able to monitor a VM, for some reason data's not flowing through, it'll let you know that so you can take action. So here we can see some computers that don't have endpoint protection enabled, and we can click in to take action. Now for your Azure VMs, Azure Security Center will actually help you to deploy an anti-malware solution on those VMs. So you can select all or some, and then choose from an integrated solution. Security Center will deploy the anti-malware solution on those machines and automatically begin collecting alerts from them. For your on-prem machines, it will discover what anti-malware is running and what the protection state of that is. It's also monitoring, as I said, those Linux and Windows configurations and showing you any mismatches here. So we're using a set of recommended configurations that represent the most hardened settings for various operating systems. And anytime where we see a discrepancy there between those recommended best practices and how your VMs are configured, we surface that here. And you can click in on any of these to learn more, find out what VMs are not complying with the rule. You can also do some filtering. We're providing, as you'll see throughout these experiences, some new high-level views that kind of show you more of your overall protection state, and then the details are down below, so you can click in if you want more information. For those of you who have used the Operations Management Suite security solution, you may recognize some of these charts and graphs that we've pulled over and added to Security Center. Here we see those missing system updates. And again, we can do some filtering at the top and we can click down to learn more. We also get an inventory of all of the machines that are connected. So this is all of our Azure VMs and any on-prem VMs that are connected. And you'll see that we've got a mix here. So we've got some Azure VMs, and we have some on-prem VMs. And we can click on any of these to learn more. So we can see for this particular computer what issues have been identified and some other details about it. So you get the inventory, and issues are flagged in aggregate as well. I think I forgot to mention earlier that Security Center is also doing some monitoring for cloud services. These are web and worker roles in Azure. And here we are monitoring to ensure that they're using the latest OS version, and we'll surface any issues to you. So on the networking side, I talked about monitoring network security groups to make sure those are enabled on VMs and subnets, and also sometimes recommending a firewall depending on your policy. We also get a list here of our internet-facing endpoints and a view of our entire network topology. In storage and access, again, we're monitoring for encryption and threat detection across SQL and storage. And applications, here we're monitoring both virtual machines and web apps in app service environments and recommending web application firewall. And here Security Center, again, helps you to provision an integrated or connected partner solution. You can choose from a list of integrated partners. Security Center will help you configure this virtual appliance in your environment and also automatically connect logs from that system. We talked a little bit about recommendations, so those are shown here. So we got kind of the high-level view across compute, networking, storage, and apps. And we also get the detailed list of prioritized security recommendations. So here's just-in-time VM access. So as I mentioned, Security Center will automatically discover VMs that have not been protected, and you can turn that on. So Security Center recommends applying just-in-time access controls to management ports. Those are the most frequently targeted, but you can also specify your own port as well, or a different port as well. So you'll specify how users will connect, the source IP addresses that you want users to connect from. So if you want them to only be able to connect from the office, you could do that. And you can specify the maximum amount of time that you want that connection to stay open. Now, users, when they come in and make the request, they may say, hey, I don't need 3 hours, I only need 30 minutes, and so they can shrink that time window down, but they can't exceed the maximum time period that you set for the VM. So once those rules are configured, your user comes in, they request access. They're just going to tell Security Center what port they want to connect to, where they're going to connect from. Again, you'll see they can choose up to 3 hours in this case. And then as long as their request complies with the rule set that was defined earlier, access is automatically granted. So they can get in there and do their work. Security Center will then, of course, lock back down those ports once that time period expires. And it's actually doing that by creating network security group rules. It's just managing those rules for you. Now you'll see that access requests are logged. So we can see that I have made many, many requests for access to this VM. And I can click in to view additional details about those requests inside of Azure Activity Logs. So all of the requests are logged there, and you can go to audit who's been making requests and that sort of thing in Azure Activity Logs. And then adaptive application controls. So here we see a list of those that are already configured and some that are recommended. So we can click in, we see what virtual machines this particular set of rules is recommended for. Again, Security Center has been monitoring, creating rules, grouping machines together that have similar rules, and surfacing those recommendations to you here. Now, not only will this help prevent malware, but it also gives some additional control. So if you want to restrict access, you want to prevent users from using some open source code, application or other things that could be vulnerable, you could do that. Security Center will flag any applications that are known to be used by attackers to kind of get around application whitelisting, so it'll also kind of help you there. Now, when you define or apply a set of application whitelisting rules, the first time they're always created in audit mode, and this enables you to run that way for a while just to validate that the rules don't have a negative impact on the operation of the VM or the applications that are running there. And then once you've confirmed that, you can go back in and edit those to change that to enforce mode. So in audit mode, you'll get a notification in the Security Center alert when an application runs that isn't on that whitelist. If you change that to enforce mode, it'll actually block that application from running. Okay, back to the deck. Let's move on to talk about threat detection and response. So Security Center helps you to detect attacks across the kill chain. It's using a variety of different techniques. It's using a number of different analytics. It is applying behavioral learning. It's leveraging Microsoft's vast global threat intelligence, which is really an incredibly unique and powerful asset that we have here at Microsoft. And this enables us to again, sort of detect attacks across the kill chain. We're not just looking at the front door. We know that with enough time and energy and focus, any environment can be compromised. So we are applying really a defense in depth approach by looking for attack indicators kind of throughout that kill chain. So if we start in the kind of early days of detect or target an attack, Security Center is monitoring for inbound brute force attacks. We talked about how common these were. So it's monitoring for inbound RDP, SSH, SQL attacks, and more. And it's using machine learning to do that. So it is learning what typical access patterns look like for a particular virtual machine. And this enables us to much more effectively alert when we see anomalies or deviations from that are likely the result of an attack. Security Center also has access to application and DDoS attacks and intrusion detections that are available through our integrated alerts from partners. As an attacker moves into the install and exploit phase, we are able to detect in-memory malware and exploit attempts. We have some unique capabilities here at Microsoft that enables us to analyze Windows error reports. So for many, many years, Microsoft has been collecting information about Windows crashes. And doing some analysis on that, we realized that there were particular patterns of activity that were likely the result of brittle malware or failed exploitation attempts. So we're now collecting information from your computers about those crashes and running that same analysis. And this has actually proved to be very, very effective. We've detected some malware that was not, for which signatures did not already exist. So a really powerful and unique asset that we have at Microsoft. So we're also applying a range of behavioral analytics to detect things like suspicious process execution, the particular patterns of activities that attackers generally use when they're trying to execute malicious code without being detected, and we're monitoring for those. We're looking for activities that could indicate lateral movement or internal reconnaissance, an attacker trying to identify high-value data within your environment to move from one computer to another. And then as the attacker moves into kind of the post-breach phase, here we're monitoring for outbound attacks. One of the things that's a pretty common objective of attackers as they're targeting cloud resources is to tap into that almost infinite compute power that's available in the cloud. So they want to get access to those virtual machines, and then they use them to execute other kind of outbound attacks. So we're monitoring for this and looking for outbound brute force attacks, outbound DDoS, outbound spam, outbound port scanning. And one example here I think is interesting is the spam example. So we talk a lot about the intelligence and insights that we get across Microsoft, the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. Here's an example of that really in action. So we're monitoring outbound SMTP traffic and detecting anomalies using machine learning. But we're not quite sure whether that traffic is the result of a legitimate email campaign or actually the result of an attacker compromising a machine and using it to send spam. But our partners in Office 365 have a ton of insight into the source of spam. And so we can correlate incidents that we see of increased SMTP traffic with Office 365, and this enables us to just much, much more effectively detect true spam attacks. So one other thing to mention here is that in the very near future, Security Center will also include alerts from Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection running on servers. So you get some additional detection capabilities through integration with Defender ATP. The other new thing that we announced this week, and it's so hot off the press, I didn't even have time to add it to the slide, is that we are launching a preview of additional behavioral analytics and detections for your Linux machines. So that's an exciting new enhancement. And really, we just continue to innovate here in the area of threat detection, as you really must in order to stay up to date with the latest attack trends. So we have a team of security researchers who are constantly monitoring the threat landscape. They're refining our detection algorithms. They're creating new ones. They're rolling those out continuously to customers. And so it's not like other systems where you have to wait for updates to come out. We're constantly refining and releasing additional analytics to help keep pace with these rapidly evolving attacks. So when we detect something in Security Center, we provide a prioritized list of security alerts, and each of those include details about the attack that you can use to take action. There's some basic recommendations on how to remediate specific to the type of attack that was detected. And we also group related alerts into security incidents. So I talked a little bit earlier about the challenge of having all of these alerts from all of these different sources, often of different levels of fidelity, and it can be a real challenge. And so part of the way that we help to address that in Security Center is by fusing related alerts together. So using analytics to do that work for you so that you can easily see that a particular attack campaign involved in this case that we're looking at here, 3 different alerts. And that can help you to much more effectively sort through and triage these alerts and understand where you need to focus first. One independent low fidelity alert, maybe it's not that actionable, but if you can put that alert together with another high fidelity alert, that can enable us to provide much higher fidelity, much more actionable incident to you. There are many cases, in fact, where Security Center will detect some suspicious activity, but if it doesn't reach a certain fidelity level, we won't alert on it unless we can fuse it together with other security alerts that are detected either by Security Center or by an integrated partner solution. So really trying to reduce the amount of noise that you get, but when we do see an attack, to give you more information that you can use to respond quickly. And part of that additional information and insight that we provide is in the form of threat intelligence. So Security Center just added a new interactive threat intelligence map, as you see here, which analyzes the traffic from malicious IPs. You can click on the map to learn more. The orange are inbound communication attempts, and the red are outbound, which is a very high severity alert indicating that your machine is likely compromised and communicating out with the malicious actor. So you can click on any of those to get some additional details you'll see over on the right-hand side. And if the attacker is a known adversary, we'll also surface a threat report, which is the next thing, that provides additional information about the attacker's known objectives and tactics and techniques. We'll take a look at one of these threat attribution reports in an alert as well. So you get those in the threat map and in the alert that's generated by Security Center. And we also announced this week the ability to easily investigate, really reducing the amount of time and expertise that's required with the new visual interactive investigation experience. So it helps you to more effectively and quickly triage alerts, to determine the scope of the alert, and to find the root cause. And we know that this can take days, weeks, even in some cases months. Historically, this is really hard and time-consuming work. And so the new investigation experience really simplifies that and makes it easier for you to take quick action. And as part of that investigation experience, there are a set of predefined queries that give you ready access to interesting security events. But you can also, as we talked about earlier, do your own examination by using the built-in log search capabilities. So you can examine all kinds of different security and operational data that's contained in your workspace. And we also announced this week integration with Azure Logic apps, which enable you to automate common security operations workflows. So you can create a workflow in Logic apps. There is a Security Center template that helps you to do that. It includes it includes information about the security alert, and you can create some conditions based on that. So you could say, if it's a high severity alert, I want to take this action, or if it's an alert impacting a high, a critical VM or workload or application, I want to take this action on that. So there are some conditions that you could build in there. So you can edit the workflow. You can trigger that based on a Security Center alert. You can view the status of what Logic app workflows have been run against an alert. You get some insight there. So why is this useful? First, you can do things like route alerts to a ticketing system like ServiceNow, which I know a lot of our customers are interested in. You can also use it to gather additional information if you see an attack. You can use it to apply additional security controls. Maybe you want to change a network security group setting to block traffic from an IP that seems to be malicious. You can ask a user to validate an action. So you can send a user to a email to the workload owner and ask them, hey, we saw something suspicious impacting your workload. Did you do this? You didn't do this. We need to investigate more. So you can get some feedback, which can be really useful. You could block a suspicious user account or block traffic. I mentioned that a moment ago from a malicious IP address. So lots of ways that you can leverage the new Logic Apps integration. Pretty cool stuff. So let's take a look at this in action. So Security Center does give you a little bit of an overview here of the most attacked resources. Kind of interesting information. You might want to reach out to that workload owner to understand a bit more about what's going on there. So again, you get this prioritized list of security alerts, and at the top we see an incident where we have fused together related alerts. We can click in on these to learn more. Here we see an attack campaign that included 3 different events. And we can click in on any of these to get additional information, including any threat attribution reports that are available. So here we see, I think this is, oh, demo gods are not smiling on me. Here we see an integrated threat attribution report. So these are a PDF report, again, that includes information about the attacker's known objectives. You can see, is this a attacker generally associated with ransomware? They're targeting credit card data or healthcare data, and also information about their tactics and techniques, which certainly can be useful to the investigation experience. So we give you lots of information, but again, also provide this new investigation experience. So along the top here, we can see the investigation path, and we can add additional events to that path. I'll show you that in a minute. And down below, we get this visual interactive graph. Let me zoom so you guys can see it in the back. That enables you to easily understand and explore the connections between related events or related alerts, computers, and users. So here in this particular case, we see that the attack began with a successful brute force attack. Now, if the user had applied just-in-time VM access, hopefully this would have been blocked, but it got through. And we see that was targeting the Contoso web computer. So we can click on that server to find out more about what's going on. I mentioned those built-in queries. So here we can see information that may be of interest. So for example, in this case, we see that a user, Abby Becker, has added herself as a local administrator on this VM. That looks pretty suspect. So if we go back to the graph, we can see what else is going on with Abby. We see that she's also signed in from an unfamiliar location. That's insight that we're getting because we're connected to the Azure AD Identity Protection Service. So we can likely assess that Abby's account has been compromised, and we need to understand a little bit more about what actions that user account is associated with. So we see that it was used to log into another computer in the network, and there it executed a suspicious process, likely some form of malware. And I mentioned that integration with logic apps, and we see that here. So we've got an alert that we want to take action on. We can click over to see a list of the predefined playbooks. We can see if any of those have been run in the past. And we can execute them from here. Now we can also edit those workflows. I'll show you how to get to that in just a moment. So greatly simplified investigation experience, again, reducing the time and the expertise that's required. So we also have this playbooks integration right in the left navigation, and here you can get to each of your Security Center logic app workflows, I should say, and you can add new ones here as well. Then finally, I wanted to give you just a quick look at two additional features. One is the new investigation dashboard, or a map, I should say. So here we get that view of inbound and outbound network traffic from malicious IP addresses. We get some additional information about each of these as we click in, and we can actually click here. This will open a search view with the related network traffic, so we can do some more searching from there. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the new custom alerts capability. So of course, Security Center is alerting based on its own analytics, but you can build your own as well. So you can create your own custom queries and generate alerts based on those as well. One other view I wanted to show you is the identity and access dashboard. I didn't talk about this in the presentation, but for those of you who are using the OMS security solution, likely would be interested in knowing that that's moved over as well. So here you get a view of login activity for your VMs and computers. And this provides some interesting insights that can be used to detect anomalies. So you can see, for example, if you've had an increase in the number of failed login attempts, you can see which accounts those login attempts were using. So you could see, for example, that the administrator, not surprisingly, is being targeted or has had a number of failed login attempts. This is likely someone trying to guess that administrator password. So you get some additional insights from the identity dashboard. Okay, and back to the deck. So hopefully I've given you a good overview of Azure Security Center, which is now hybrid and has lots of new capabilities that help you to effectively find and fix vulnerabilities impacting your Azure environments, to apply smarter security controls to help block attacks, and provides you with the tools you need to detect and respond quickly to an attack. Now, what I hope you will do after this session, if you haven't already, is to open Security Center in the Azure portal and see what insights that reveals, at least about your Azure resources. Much of that is available, as I said earlier, at no additional cost. So no reason to not just see what insights it reveals about the security state of your Azure workloads. Also, as I mentioned, there is this free trial of the standard version, so you can turn that on for 60 days. You'll get all of the threat detection capabilities and can see the insights that reveals. I will take questions. If you have any, feel free to stay for that. We've got a little bit of time left. And then finally, encourage you to onboard your non-Azure resources as well. And there's a link here where you can learn more. We've also got some other sessions that might be of interest to you today. So I'll leave that slide up, but I'm happy to take any questions. I'll just ask that you move to the microphone so that we can get those on the recording. Thank you.
If you have multiple Office 365 and Azure tenants, can they all feed a single security center?
Multiple what?
Azure and Office 365 tenants.
Azure and Office 365. So Azure Security Center is not currently looking at Office data. Now you can feed that separately into your log analytics workspace, but that's not really part of the Security Center offering. We're not doing any particular insider analytics on top of that.
Okay. But if you had multiple Azure tenants, you can get the data in a single view?
It is per tenant.
It is per tenant?
It is per tenant.
Okay.
Yes.
Quick question. If so OMS, I know Microsoft has an OMS lab that has like 500 pre-populated servers. Is there going to be something like that for this?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question very well.
So Microsoft provided an OMS lab that has like 500 pre-populated servers just to mess around and look at all the resources. Is there going to be something like that for Security Center?
They're working on it.
Okay.
It'll actually be part of a one security and management experience, so it will continue to be the log analytics and the other OMS pieces as well as Security Center. So there'll be one environment, it'll just be a new environment. Nice. That you'll be able to leverage. So they're working on some labs and some other things that will enable that for you, like you have today with the OMS experience.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Sarah. Are there any updates to the API for ASC coming soon?
We are working on some fairly significant updates to the APIs, yes.
Okay. Any idea when it will be released?
I don't have an exact timeline, but I know they're working on it now, so I'm guessing 30, 60 days. Yes.
For your application whitelisting, do you have the capability for ask versus just block alone?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing.
Do you have the capability for block and ask versus just blocking it?
Block a what?
Ask.
An ask?
Yep.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay. If you don't know it, don't worry about it then.
Okay. Feel free to stick around after. Maybe we can chat for just a bit.
Yeah, or something. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll wrap then. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your time today.